afternoon, San Diego. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Real Talk San Diego, and I'm Claire McKee, here to bring you the business of life in America's finest city. This show is presented by our loyal partners at 5 Star Escrow and First American Title. And today, we've got a juicy one for you. The topic today is learn your rights when your spouse lies, cheats, or steals. So you're going to want to grab your popcorn and stay tuned because we've got some good stuff for you coming. Joining me today is Hildy Fentin. She's a partner and chair of the Family Law and Collaborative Group at Henderson, Caverly & Pum. Great to have you here, Hildy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing so well. Are you ready to have some fun?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And to educate.
Yes, that's right. And also, I have my returning co-host, Laurie Itkin. She is the options lady, and she's a certified divorce financial analyst. How's it going, Laurie?
Great, Anja. We have a great panel for everyone today.
We sure do. And last but surely not least is Laleh Hanks. She is the lending manager at America Choice Mortgage. Hi.
Hi, glad to be here. It's
so
exciting.
Happy to have you here. So it is a juicy topic. It's a little cray-cray, like we all know. But Hildy, we're going to start with you. And why don't you just share an overview of your practice and what it is that you do?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. First of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here. I'm a family law attorney. I've been practicing family law for over 37 years. Hard to believe.
Before you were born. That's incredible.
Before I was born, before many people that are watching was born. Early in my career, I was a litigator. I found myself in court fighting the battle of what happens when you go through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And the more I worked with people in that setting, the more I realized that no one wins when you walk into court.
Yeah.
When it's a family law situation, it's a lose-lose. And so after years of emotionally charged and costly litigation, I stopped litigating. Mm-hmm. And I don't do litigation anymore. The only thing that I do now is mediation and collaborative divorce, which is an expanded mediation with a group of professionals that work together to help people resolve their differences in an amicable setting.
So I want to drill down on that a little bit because
Sure.
I think sometimes when people hear collaborative or mediation, they think it's very like kumbaya and, you know, how does this work? So maybe break down like what the reality of a mediation setting is.
So in some instances, I'm happy to report that it is kumbaya. It's like having a loan that goes through really smoothly. Some people actually are respectful and communicate and are kind to each other, but that's not always the case.
Sure.
And most people come into mediation because they want to resolve and have control over the decision making. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean they like each other.
Right.
And so oftentimes there's a lot of contention, a lot of heated discussion. Sometimes I bring in attorneys because it's so heated and because the issues are so complicated. I bring in financial advisors like Laurie when we need to untangle some of the complexities of a divorce. And in one instance, I literally stood up, told one party to sit over there and not move. The other person had to sit over in the couch, and I said, and do not get up. And we resolved their entire case.
Did you get your therapy degree too?
Yeah. So
By default.
So honestly, because we are counselors at law.
Yes.
And so I would say doing family law is truly using all parts of your brains, both counselor and being a legal advisor.
And so being that you practice in California, California is a no-fault state, which means that most times assets are divided equally. Is that always the case, or is there some exceptions to that?
There are exceptions. California is a community property state, and so what that means is typically anything acquired during the marriage is community property and divided equally, except when there's a spouse that may be lying or cheating or hiding and doing bad acts. Mm-hmm. And in those instances, the spouse, the innocent spouse, if he or she learns of the bad acts, can recoup the money into the estate and ask that the not so innocent spouse reimburse the community for all the funds that were expended.
Wow.
Expenses that are incurred that do not benefit the community,
Like a vacation in Hawaii that was supposed to be business and turned
like
out
a
not to be.
vacation in Hawaii that's not supposed to be business, or, in one extreme example, the purchase of a home for a
Sure.
Another party.
Another party.
Wow.
And they're partying in that home.
Yeah.
Those expenses can be recouped. And so it makes the community whole, the community estate whole, and so the innocent spouse gets his or her half share. And so that benefits everyone. And so as I thought more about what we talked about, Claire, in fact, that does have them equally share the community. It's just bringing in the money that was spent that did not benefit the community back into the community.
I'll give you a great example. You know, my husband and I have a joint checking account, and often when he travels in Asia, he's too lazy to take the ATM withdrawal from his own checking account for his business. It comes out of our joint checking account. He simply reimburses the joint checking account,
Perfect.
and we go on and on. It's 50-50. That's simple. But is it really that simple, Hildy?
Well, sometimes, as you might imagine, not everyone is as forthright about their bad acts, and particularly when you're in mediation. But in any instance, you never really want to own up for some of the behavior that you were doing. If you thought it was okay, you would have been upfront about it.
Which is why it also gets so expensive, because then you have to do an audit and
Exactly.
financials. And
Well, that's
So-
what I was going to say. Where's the money, right? You have to play the game.
So we would hire a forensic accountant to go through years
looking
and
for
years
transfers to
and
accounts
years.
that you didn't know existed or whatever it might be.
That's exactly right. So it can be very costly if you're amicable and you're sitting down and I say put every issue on the table. I know it's going to be difficult. In many instances in my mediations, they'll come forth and they'll say yes, and then we let them decide what they think is a fair number. And if the innocent spouse doesn't feel that that's in the range of reasonable, he or she can then go ahead and hire the forensic. But there are ways to deal with very difficult issues like this one, the affairs. I have one where husband was a regular gambler and spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Wife had no idea. But when it came to sitting down and talking about things, she said, you know, you reported gambling income. I have to believe there was more to that on the tax return. 'cause you
Great
do.
point.
And so it opened up the discussion, and he admitted to a lot. Who knows if it was everything, but it was worth
Yeah,
it
that
for
is
them
interesting to think.
to
It's hard
settle
to
it.
hide gambling, because you're going to get a 1099 if you're making more than, I assume,
Right.
$600 or so. I would
Right.
imagine they're under similar
Right.
rules.
But you don't
Right.
report your loss. Who's going to report their losses? I mean, you could, but I mean,
But you still would get
Right.
verification of it if it was that.
Exactly.
What about from an investment standpoint? What if one spouse is just making very poor investments and ends up losing a ton of money as a result? Who's at fault?
So that's a really
That's
good
a tough
question.
and I see that one a lot.
Yeah.
I
And-
work on that.
So that's a very interesting question, and there's a current case that just came down, marriage of Kamar, that really brings the point home. Short summary of the case is, if you authorize your spouse to do investments and the spouse is not irrational in his or her investments, then if there's a loss, everyone shares in the loss. But if a spouse takes money, puts it in a risky investment, and loses it all, then that spouse needs to reimburse the community for the loss.
If it was an inappropriate
Yes.
type of investment, which is, we often see that's a gray area. Right?
That's what I was
Very
going to say. What on earth determines that? Because people are making a ton of money on Bitcoin, for example, right
Right.
now.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You can make a lot of money, but people are also losing a whole lot of money. So what's safe and what's
I
not?
lived through the mortgage crash.
Yeah.
Things,
Right.
and to blame somebody for that being a bad, business decision, it's
Right.
kind of, you have to, there's a lot of gray area there.
So here's an indicator. Here's when you know you're probably not supposed to be doing this. In this case, Kamar, he took $2.5 million and asked wife, can I take 2.5 and I call it gamble, and invest it? And she said yes. She gave consent. So, no shocker, he invested it and he lost it all. Well, he didn't tell her, and then took the balance of their estate, that would be $9.5 million, and invested in a very risky investment, so risky that the manager of the investment fund said, I need you and your spouse to sign off on this because it's so risky. He forged her signature and of course.
There goes the gray area.
Lost it all. So there goes the gray area. So he lost it all. So when she went into court and asked the court to please give her 100% of the money back, she didn't get 100% of the money. The court said, you authorize the 2.5.
Right.
We can't predict what the market's going to do and whether there's going to be a fluctuation. And certainly if he had done well, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
So she did not get the $2.5 million back, but the community did recover for the balance.
Yeah.
Now, was that a verbal consent that she provided, or it was written, so it was able to be?
I have to assume it was written,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. At least I didn't read that in the case, but I have to assume it was written. And if I were going to spend $2.5 million and invest it, make sure you get it in writing.
That was what I was going to say. Just like a fun tip for everyone out there. If you're considering investing that much money, make sure all parties are clear on it and that you sign the dotted line to
But
save
let's
yourself.
bring it down to practicality. I mean, most estates aren't that large. But
Right.
I see this all the time. Women come to me and they say, I don't know, my husband's investing in biotech because that's what he knows. Well, oh my gosh, I mean, talk about some of the most risky stocks. You can make a lot of money, but you can lose a lot of money. So, at some point, there's got to be some responsibility. If you are a spouse and you are happy to have him or her take care of the investing,
Right.
it is really incumbent upon you to get educated to understand what are the risks, the pros and cons. And I don't see enough of that financial education, which is scary and needs to change.
It does.
Is that something that could be put in a prenup? Like before you make any investments, you have to over this amount?
Good question.
Because you may want a prenup to protect your previous assets or not, but maybe you don't want that type of prenup, but you want to just get in writing, hey, let's be a little clear here, the things we do talk about.
Yeah,
Under $1,000,
great idea.
you have a free reign, but anything, over that, that's a family, topic.
Family decision.
Definitely. Is that something that you could do in a prenup?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely, and
Or
it would be binding.
a post-nuptial agreement, right, if we see this as a problem.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Right.
and I think generally speaking, I would say hire a professional like yourself, Laurie. Like, don't just be on the web investing in whatever. Like, if you're going to put that much money out there, don't you want to hire a trusted professional anyways and make this like a family
Right.
deal?
Well, don't you think marriages would last longer if everybody went to therapy once a month?
Oh, yeah. I think everyone in the world should be in therapy personally. That's just a total side note, but
I think marriages would last longer if people would take the advice of noted professionals
Third
instead
parties,
of
because when you're close to something, you get so
Right.
emotionally distracted
Exactly.
by it.
So true.
That's why surgeons don't operate on themselves, because
Yeah.
they could surely numb themselves and get through it, but it's
Yeah.
not a good idea.
Yeah. So I want to talk on the other side of things. You actually mentioned a case with me where a spouse won the lottery, won a ton of money, and didn't say anything. So they didn't lose a lot of money, which is great, but they also didn't share in their earnings. So what happens in a case like that?
That's the case of in re marriage of Rossi. And I want to give you a little backdrop before I explain what ultimately happened in that case. In California, we have divorcing spouses have an obligation to fully disclose all of their assets and their debts and their income and expenses before they reach a settlement. And the reason makes sense that's a requirement is they want to make sure that people are fully informed of what their assets are before they reach a settlement or go to trial.
Right.
In this instance, Mrs. Rossi was not as forthcoming about the lottery winnings that she received. And it goes further. She and a group of her colleagues at work all pooled their money in order to buy into a lottery
Somebody
ticket.
actually won.
They won. She was informed that they won. Though she was married to her very devoted spouse for 25 years, she ran home and said, I want a divorce. Because she had called the lottery commission and was given bad advice, who said, if you file for divorce before you receive your first payment, that will be yours. The other thing that she
Sneaky.
was told is make sure the money goes to someone else's address. So she had all the payments go to her mother's address.
The lottery commissioner was giving her this advice.
This is what it says
What?
in the case. And I was
I wonder
like,
what state that was. I wonder if that
kidding.
person still has
So
his or
lesson
her
number
job.
one, take advice from an attorney specialized in that.
But she heard what she wanted to hear.
Totally.
Of course, yeah.
Totally.
So, yeah, she did. So she did that. So she filed for divorce, started receiving payments, put everything into her mother's, had everything mailed to her mother's house, never disclosed that she received this lottery. Okay. And she had her own attorney, and he didn't. She completed all the disclosures for him and for her, and it was crazy. So
And
they
did
go
not
ahead.
include it as
did not
separate
include
property
it. No,
or
nothing.
joint anything. Just didn't mention it.
Right.
It just didn't
So
happen.
they divided all their known community and separate assets. 3 years later.
He's probably like, why is she going through this so amicably? This is going so easy. She's all of a sudden nice.
So 3 years later, a little whoops happened. And that was that the Lottery Commission mailed a letter to her old address where he resided and said, you know, if you want to stop getting monthly payments and you want to receive a lump sum, please contact us. So, of course, he brought a motion and set aside the judgment and asked for 100% of the reimbursement for the proceeds. And in a typical case where there's an omitted asset, it's divided 50-50.
Oh, so in a typical case, if it's omitted because it really wasn't contemplated, it was a mistake. is what you're saying.
Unintentional.
Unintentional. Thank you.
Lie by omission. It's always
Right.
Ah.
But in this case, the court found that she intentionally defrauded him, and they awarded 100% of the lottery winnings to him.
Ooh. That's where you say karma is a bee.
So, moral to
saying.
the story, be honest, communicate, get permission,
and
Be
play
a
lottery.
crime.
and you'll never
And
be
pull
you'll
for the lottery.
never be penalized in court, and you'll probably be happily married.
And I think the takeaway that I notice is the whole being forthright and just being very upfront and honest from the start. I think that's the reason you're mediating in the first place, is because you want to have control over what's happening and you don't want to spend a ton of time, money, and resources in court.
Exactly.
So just if you're doing it, do it right. Just tell the truth, right? Is it that difficult?
Difficult for lots of people, unfortunately.
Scary. It is scary. So Hildy, thank you so much for that
Sure.
information. That was Hildy Fentin. She's partner and chair of the Family Law and Collaborative Group at Henderson, Caverly, and Pum. And you can find more information about her at fentinlaw.com. That's FENTIN law.com. We're getting some love here from our viewers. Roberta says, yes, wise couples get help when they have an issue that comes between them frequently. Research shows that most couples have such an issue for 6 years before getting help. Who has 6 years to waste when an issue can be resolved? Roberta, we are with you all the way.
Yeah, Roberta.
And Tori says, smart women. Why, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We think you're smart too. So, Laurie, you are up. And don't forget Facebook Live. We'd love to hear your comments and questions, so keep engaging with us. We'll give you a shout out. Laurie is the options lady. She's also a certified divorce financial analyst. And you're going to share with us what people need to be thinking about financially if they are preparing for a divorce.
Yep. So let's say you're one of the situations that Hildy talked about. You're a little frustrated in your marriage. There might not have been much openness, and you're ready to call it quits. I have women, mostly women, come to me. Men come to me as well, and I sometimes work with couples, but really most of my work is done as a financial advocate for women. And no matter if you're just thinking about divorce or starting to go through the process, there are really just 4 things, and Hildy mentioned them briefly, but you've got to think about your financial picture is going to be comprised of assets. That's what you own, either yourself or as a couple. Or it might be the assets that are separately owned by your spouse. Debts, that's what you owe. Income, what's the income coming into the household, all income sources, and expenses, which are always the most difficult for people because very few people really have a budget or work off a budget. And let me tell you, it gets even more complicated. If you don't have a handle of these things while you're married, it becomes even more difficult as you're going through the divorce process. So what I'd like to do, especially when women come to me early on, they're even just thinking about leaving, their number one question is, am I going to be able to survive financially without my husband? And, because a lot of cases, the husband may be the primary breadwinner. So I always suggest to them the best way to start getting organized is just Google California FL 142. That's the schedule of assets and debts, and it's going to give you a guideline of what to think about. What is your house worth? How much is still on the mortgage? Do you have any life insurance? What about retirement accounts? Does one of you have a pension? Are there any checking and savings accounts? It gives you just a listing of what your assets are. And then the debts. You have to think about student loans, your own student loans or your children's student loans, credit card debts, that's the best way. So if you're going to meet with me at first, I would like you to start using that 142, FL 142 as a guide. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. We can sort of try to fill some of the holes.
Gets you thinking, though.
Get you thinking. Now the income and expenses, it's called FL 150. It's a bear of a form. It's not organized well. The budget stuff is really just archaic, and Hildy has her own budget for clients to use. But you really need to go through the exercise. What income is coming in? And what are your expenses? What is the mortgage interest? What is the property tax? How much does it cost when your car, you need to get new tires every 3 years? What does that mean on a monthly basis? Your pets. So that's the first thing. You want to get aware of your debts, assets, debts, income, and expenses. Now, I want to talk about one of the red flags I see. So I hear this a lot when couples are negotiating their settlement. I'll keep my pension, she'll keep her retirement. So, and that sounds fair sometimes, maybe, right? We'll just walk away, we'll settle everything else, but I'll have my retirement, you'll have your retirement. It's very interesting. I only hear that, that proposal by the person who has the higher valued retirement plan. It's not always the man, right? The women can do this as well. And so I want people to understand that there's quite a difference between a 401k and a pension. If you've worked for the county here, if you've worked military, you've worked for a private company and you're fortunate to have a pension, there are ways that we can value what the future streams of payment. All it means is that if you have a pension and you retire, you're going to be getting a monthly stream of income until you die or something else happens. We can value that today. So really, if you encounter this, I say consult a CDFA like myself, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, or you can go to a CPA, somebody who has experience valuing pensions, and let's see what the present value of these future streams of payment are, and let's compare that to the 401k we know the value of now.
It's not apple. You're talking
It's
apples
and oranges. Absolutely. And when people say, oh, it's going to be too complicated to divide these things, it's not. It's time consuming, it costs a little bit of money, but it's not complicated. We do this every single day, right, Hildy?
And it's emotional
Yes.
no matter what. I mean, you're either going to deal with the emotions right now or you're going to deal with regretting it later. So the sooner they get that emotional barrier taken care of, I think it's important.
And second to the family residence, it is the largest asset of an estate.
Absolutely.
And people aren't aware of it.
No.
They don't understand anything about pensions and what they mean and the enormous value they have.
And I've seen so many mistakes on these disclosure firms. Attorneys even make this mistake, where the husband. I just had a case where the husband put down the value, and I think I don't think he was intentionally being wrong. I think he just doesn't know. He's a doctor. What he put down as the value of his pension was simply his pre-tax contributions he's made, and really the value of the pension was right there on the other side of the sheet. It gives you an estimate of if he retired next year, what that lump sum would be. It was quite different. So again, pensions and retirement assets, please take the time when you are divorcing to get some financial analysis of that. The next issue that's so big is the house, right? People assume all the time, oh, we've been married a while, we're going to sell the house and we'll just split the equity in the house. Oh my gosh, that can be, it depends on the situation. How was that home? Where did the down payment money for that home first come from? Maybe, Claire, you bought a condo with your own money. 2 years later, you have a boyfriend. You get married, he moves in before the marriage. Then now community funds are paying down the mortgage, right? You refinance, you take cash out. My goodness, 8 years later, well,
It's muddled.
It's not 50-50. And I see this mistake all the time too. Once again, you'll have to decide, and Hildy's been mediating for a long time. I'm sure you coach people on how deep in the weeds you want to go.
Absolutely. And if someone wants to pursue their separate property claims, they're entitled to, but it could be costly. So there's a cost-benefit analysis.
Right. So on that issue, again, if you're dealing with the house, and then briefly before I turn it over to Laleh, number one question I get: Can I afford to keep the house? I want to keep the house. Can I stay in the house? Can I keep the house? Typically, the woman typically has teenage kids or younger, doesn't want to disrupt.
Which is a valid point.
Valid point.
Stability.
Valid point. But we have to sit down early on. We have to think about what kind of child or spousal support might even be a ballpark that you might even be entitled to. Do you understand you've got to pay property tax? Do you understand when you have $9,000 a year in property tax, what that means on a monthly basis? What does it cost to maintain a home? We have to think about this. And are you ready to give up all the retirement assets in this as a community to keep the house? And the number one thing is, even if you want to keep the house, and even if you can afford to keep the house, can you qualify for a mortgage to refinance it? And on that note, I would love to, I think we'll just segue in, but I'd love to tell viewers, I give a complimentary consultation on the phone, theoptionslady.com. If you have any questions, you're contemplating divorce, you're going through one, please visit my website, and just happy to help men and women in the community if I can be of help.
Yeah, that's perfect. And theoptionslady.com is a great place to start for Laurie. So that is a perfect transition to you, Laleh. But before we get into the weeds with all the specifics, maybe just give a brief overview of what America Choice Mortgage is all about.
Sure, yeah. I've been mortgage lending for 16 years, and I really fell in love with teaching clients and giving them the education that they need to make good decisions. And I found that no matter who you are, whether you're an entrepreneur, CEO, nurse, doctor, firefighter, it's kind of this deer in the headlights experience, not only because the industry changes so much so often. I mean, it was a good faith estimate, then it's a, it changes. Now we're dealing with TRID and all these different things that we in the industry have a hard time keeping up with. So I think I really do like to teach as, a method, and I want people to leave, my transaction feeling like, oh, I was given choices, I was educated, I chose what was best for my family, and I feel like that's what good business is. So.
And that's something we discussed offline, is that they don't teach you this stuff in school. You don't learn how to go get a mortgage or what it takes to do so.
No, and the only reason I found out was Crash Course. I was recruited into the industry after September 11th. Previous to my mortgage career, I offered employee benefits, and I used to go in, do enrollments, educate people about actually legal insurance. And once September 11th happened, it just went down. Nobody would call me back. And so, blessing in disguise, I fast forward. And so I did create America Choice Benefits. And Laurie's been one of our power partners for years now. And we just like to go into companies, educate employees with discounts, resources, and benefits so that they can actually make good decisions. Because obviously, as a business owner, you want your employees to be homeowners. And the fact is, about 63% of them are. And that's been a steady statistic for years. And the average person refinances every 4 to 5 years, I think, is the number. But rates are going up, so
yes, they
so
are.
That might change a little bit, right? You know about that.
Well, and with so many people who do rent in San Diego because of the cost of living, I think what an amazing benefit for an employer to provide their employees with a crash course, essentially, on how to set yourself up for success.
We're still putting people into homes, and their outgo reduces. So it's still a great time to buy. We've got a range of market prices in San Diego. So I still think that, better secure, because I think, everybody wants to live here. We live in, one of the greatest cities in all of the world. And as much as change as we'll endure, I think that we're going to still have a nice, steady climb, which is kind of how it should be. And, the breaks are probably good at this moment.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So in regards to separated or divorcing couples, what is some advice or tips you have for them in regards to getting a home?
A lot with regards to getting a home, but no matter whether you're thinking of getting a home or not, I think it's always a good idea to look at credit. And you were talking about what you put on that form and what the pieces are. I call it the 3 C's: credit, collateral, and compensation. So your property is your collateral, and whether you have one or not, understanding what your price point is that you want to buy at, or what outgo you can afford. We can always work backwards and figure out what purchase price you might.
And they don't like that answer, because I sometimes get that answer that it's well under $500,000 and there's nothing they can buy in Carmel Valley for that.
Yeah. And then, the other thing is obviously just really understanding your credit. I think that it's emotional for people. They don't want to look, sometimes just that head in the sand kind of, mentality. You just don't want to deal with it. But the nice thing is when you bring it to us, a professional, we're not emotionally attached to it. We can whip that thing around and tell you, you know, what's going on. Just like when they bring that form to you, you know, you can fill in the blanks for them really quickly. We do the same. And so I think just facing it, and it's emotional no matter what.
Sure.
You know, and it's kind of one of those things that'll snowball if you're not like taking immediate action on it, and going through hard times like a divorce or changes, and you know, not spending time with your kids. You know, there's depression, there's all types of things that can happen, but I think it's important just to kind of wrap your arms around it, find some good professionals, and find out who they're working with, because often, you know, we work with each other because you could have a tax advisor trying to write all this stuff off and do their job well, but you forgot to tell them you're trying to buy next year, and now you're 10 grand short, where, you know, you're supposed to take your write-offs, but you don't have to be so aggressive.
Yeah, where the CPA's job is to try to minimize the tax you pay, and so if you own your own business, they're going to try to increase your deductions, which is actually counterproductive to what Laleh is trying to do to get you a home, to qualify for a home.
Really interesting.
It's very interesting. People,
you can be sabotaging yourself and not realize it because you're benefiting in another way.
And even just, it doesn't even matter if you're going through a divorce or not. Just, I wrote an article called Do's and Don'ts, because if you do certain things that are normal, let's say you're buying a property or you're moving, and you just decide to go on Craigslist and start listing everything for sale because finally you got motivated, right, to get rid of stuff, and you're putting cash in your bank account. We can't source that money. You know, an underwriter doesn't know if you just took a new credit card out and took a cash advance where your payments are at 24% interest. That money has to be seasoned for 60 days. And so just knowing little things like that can make the mortgage process so much more peaceful. Otherwise, you know, we're writing letters of explanation and putting together dots and paper for days, just trying to kind of correct your movements a little bit, or, you know.
You know, like, don't go buy a new car when you're trying to get a mortgage.
Oh, that happens. Yeah, it happens.
So how soon would you recommend somebody reach out to you if, I don't know, maybe they haven't even truly considered buying a home, but they know they want to do it? When is too soon or soon enough?
I don't think it's ever too soon, because I recommend anybody look at their credit minimum once a year, ideally twice a year. You know, I've seen people all of a sudden go into escrow and something's on credit because somebody had a similar name. You know, my maiden name is Laleh Vachelius, born in January. Nobody stole my identity, but I was buying my first property. It was back in like 2003 or something like that, and right before close of escrow, I mean, we're literally closing escrow. They said, you have all of a sudden a Mercedes and a this and a that, and there was another Laleh Vacheli in California, born in January, and somehow when we ran credit, all of our credit got merged, and so my credit was over 700, and that was what was required with this program. It went to 699 because of the debt load. I was lucky that she paid that Mercedes on time, but it's still a debt load. And you know, that even happened to me in the industry right before close, and that, you know, we had just ran a credit report. So crazy things can happen. So just stay on top of it. There's a myth that I like to bust. A lot of people think that, you know, if you ignore something for 7 years, it goes away. Not the case.
Doesn't work that way?
Once you take care of something, it will go away after 7 years. And that's a big one. I don't know where that rumor started. But
it's because once you file bankruptcy, you can't file again for 7 years.
Well, once you have a bankruptcy and it's discharged, it also will generally come off in 7 years, and you can get it off a little sooner, and there's tricks to that. And maybe that's where it originated from. But people really believe, that went caught like wildfire, because I'm still correcting that myth right now.
That's really interesting. And the other thing to consider is that just the credit you can often pull for free, isn't that different than the credit you're pulling?
Much different. And your credit's also different. Let's say you just bought a car, and you're like, oh, my credit score's 770 over there, and you come to me, and it's a little bit more complicated credit pull. We're looking at a little bit more responsibility and length and time, and so it does tend to be a different score. Same thing when you're looking at your credit card. Sometimes they're just showing you Experian, and that may not be the middle. We use the middle of the 3 scores in most cases.
Gotcha.
And there's programs that, you know, are niche products that loosen things up in various different ways. But if you want to prepare and qualify for the best and not waste money, then, you know, I just would suggest running credit minimum once a year. We do that as a courtesy, and we kind of go through a little coaching plan. Luckily, these days, any loan officer that can run credit can actually tell you what to do to improve your credit.
But that means planning. That's advanced planning, because you're not going to improve your credit overnight. So, I mean, how many people plan it? But you're telling you should.
And we can improve your credit within like 5 days, actually.
Wow.
I've gotten people score up 100 points.
Whoa.
But it does cost money. You have to pay, you know, roughly, you know, $40 per bureau per trade. So depending on how many things we're dealing with. But, you know, our software program will say, hey, I have $5,000 to work with. Where can I get with this? Or I say, hey, I need 100 points. And same thing with collections. I always recommend, if you have a collection on credit, don't pay it. go negotiate with them to get it off of your credit. Tell them you'll pay it. If you pay it and then ask them to get rid of it because they never told you about it, you have zero leverage. And I've had one $30 medical collection removed, and I think it was like 96-point increase.
Wow.
Just off of that one
Fascinating.
collection. And if you pay that collection off to a zero balance, your credit score does not move, not even an ounce.
Really?
Right. It just takes time for it to kind of dissipate and go away on its scoring model.
Interesting.
Yeah. And those collection companies, they're not necessarily supposed to do that, but they will.
Yeah.
You know, if
So you said collateral, credit, and the third
Compensation.
is compensation.
So income. So let's bring it to income. Obviously, when you go through, divorce, there might be alimony or child support involved.
Right.
The main thing is making sure that that income goes forward for 3 years. So if you are receiving, child support and your child is 16, we're not going to be able to use that income.
Got it, because you're not going to have it for the
Yeah,
next
it's not
3
family
years.
income for 3 years.
Understood.
And then if you are receiving, you have to wait 6 months. We have to have 6-month proof of payment for alimony, child support. Same thing with like Social Security income if you want to receive Social Security. But again, there's more lenient programs, but shopping for the best.
So a fourth C, do you do consultations if people just want to find out
Absolutely,
what's the roadmap to get to where I want to go?
We highly recommend it. We encourage it. All of my business has been referral and repeat clients, and working with a lot of agents in San Diego. I'm definitely a fighter for the loan. My girls know. They're like, can you give up already? I don't give up very much. So
I love it.
But we're also very honest about where you're at and where you need to be, so you can at least plan for it.
Well, and that's like I said, the woman who wants to stay in the home, if she's going through mediation, she's an opportunity to work with Hildy or another mediator to get some of that 6 month of support, temporary support documented. I don't know, do you have a minute to even discuss how that might happen?
Oh, sure. If you're in any instance, whether it's mediation or a typical litigated case, you can get a temporary support award before you get your final divorce decree. And if you need a history of earnings or a history of income, that may go to the mortgage lending calculation. I'm not sure if you look at temporary support
I have
towards
not been
that.
able to use temporary support,
I
not in the
didn't think
Fannie or
so.
Freddie program, but
Yeah.
we have bank statement programs where we'll just look at the money coming into your account.
Which would be helpful then, because you're going to get a consistent monthly payment.
Right, but usually I have found that you need a final order that
Yeah,
is
you
going to
really
go.
do, because once you go to court, it could completely change, and we know that. So,
Exactly.
Darn
That's
it.
exactly right.
but you only have to be on a W-2 job now for 6 months.
That's
and
fabulous.
so that's great. So women can get back to work and
great.
get a good job. I think our economy is strong right now, so I think we're going to see growth and opportunity. And I have a lot of friends that go through divorces, and not everybody's as fortunate. I've been through divorce, and I do get my child support, which is great. But I almost feel like it's people are like, oh, you're so lucky, and I'm like, really? Why should that be considered lucky? So I feel for those that aren't getting the support that they think that they deserve. But we have a great economy, and reach out to us if you have a good expertise. If you want to put your resume together, let's just dust yourself off and get yourself out there.
And have a team
agree.
of trusted advisors to uplift you and make sure you're on the right path, right? You don't have to do it
Absolutely.
alone.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, Laleh, you have an event coming up. We have to talk about it.
Yes.
Give us the deets.
Sure. Well, I like to appreciate my clients. So once a year I do a client appreciation party, and we just had our office open in Rancho Bernardo, up the 15. There's a Barron's Market there, and we have a really cool spot up top.
Oh, yeah, I
So
know
it's
right
an
where you are.
anniversary party for America Choice Benefits and a client appreciation party for the mortgage. Whenever I do a party, I love music, so I throw a concert. So we have Stephen Ybarra, who's a local artist that's done really well. He's #1 on the Country Music Countdown with the Iceman right now. So he's
Fun.
kind of hot topic, and he's starting at 3:30. And following him is Jennifer Klein.
On Saturday,
I was gonna say,
not
what day
today.
is it?
Saturday, yeah, Saturday the 24th, 224,
Awesome.
in Rancho Bernardo. And if you look up hashtag in honor of Chad, we're benefiting in honor of Chad, as well as Operation Support and Supply San Diego. I was kind of moved to start Operation Support and Supply San Diego when I saw what happened to our local neighbors losing their homes in the fires. And you always feel like one person, how can I help?
Yeah.
And so we're collecting donations. So if there's any businesses that want to be a drop-off location for new or gently, those things that are hanging in your closet with the tag on still, kind of gently used items, I'd like to in the future do a shopping event and invite people affected by the fires, then otherwise we'll donate to a good cause or whatnot,
Yeah.
make sure it goes to good use. But operations support and supply, I just feel like our community, if we were better prepared in the case of an emergency, I always use the analogy of having like singles on you. Like, I don't know, do you remember when the lights went out in San Diego? Were you around? It was like 12 hours.
It was scary.
Yeah, 12 hours, and everybody met their neighbors, and
We did.
we all found our candles and our batteries, but we also found we were not prepared.
Yes.
We were not prepared, and people don't have dollar bills on them if we need to get gas and the electricity's out.
Good point.
How are you going to get it? And so I just feel like if we're better prepared as a community, we're going to risk our first responders a lot less.
Yeah.
If we're prepared to take care of our neighbors and have a plan. And so that's what Operations Support and Supply is all about through In Honor of Chad.
I think that's so great also, just because with our news cycle being so short, the fires happen and then a week or two goes by and you
People
don't really
forget.
hear anything else about it. But there are people still
There are people
rebuilding
still trying
from
to
the
rebuild.
Rancho Bernardo fires. That was what, 08
Absolutely.
that happened?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yes.
hopefully they all had insurance, but I'm sure somebody was caught without. And even if you do, it doesn't begin to replace
No.
your belongings. And we all have so much. We're all very fortunate. We could go through our closets right now and pull out, a couple bags full. And, I don't want us to go dump our, leftovers on anybody,
Sure.
but I want to invite them, allow them to pick through and shop, and then the rest will go to homeless or, maybe a women's halfway home here in San
Sure.
Diego. So that's for the donations. But,
Perfect.
I started In Honor of Chad. It's a pending nonprofit. I lost my brother to PTSD.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Not
so-
long ago either.
Not long ago, and I'll try to keep my makeup on, so we're going to breeze right past it. But
Okay.
I just feel like veterans, they're broken down psychologically, then they're built up psychologically to be this warrior, right? And put in the face of war. They see all kinds of horrific things you can't even imagine. I mean, I have PTSD just scrolling through Facebook sometimes, Imagine being right there and reliving it. And they don't do anything to build them back up psychologically to kind of re-assimilate in, a civilian environment.
Yeah.
And I believe that their emotional shield becomes very thin. And right now they're solving the problem, in my opinion, with pharmaceuticals. My brother was on 5 different layers of medication and not being seen by a doctor on a regular basis, just being able to get the refills. And I don't believe that's a permanent solution. A lot of our, 45% of the United States makes up 45% of the pharmaceutical consumption. And I just don't think that's a long-term solution. I understand if it's, a temporary plan and you have a plan to maybe exit, some of those coping type of things, but it's not really dealing with the root issue. So In Honor of Chad was created to provide resources, support, solutions, and coping skills for PTSD for first responders and veterans.
Well, I'm
That's
so
beautiful.
happy, that exists because we need more of that.
Well,
You're
we're working
so
on it.
right.
We need it to exist. So come to our concert. Help
Yeah.
us. All the proceeds over and above the party are going to the cause. Any donations that we get, we're going to have another fashion show and let these people come and
Wonderful,
pick up stuff.
wonderful, wonderful.
And
So
Laleh knows how to throw a party. She's got a lot of connections, friends, colleagues,
kidding.
and
she's like, a party? It's a concert, she said.
I like to work smart, play hard, and I love music, and I like my people in San Diego. I think we have a really great community of professionals,
Yeah.
and so I like to give the opportunity to have fun.
So true. Well, if you want more information about Laleh, you can go to americachoicebenefits.com. And then if you would like to donate, can they find more information on the website? Should they call you? What's the best
absolutely.
way?
So on just go hashtag In Honor of Chad, find our Facebook page. What could we have done? WhatCouldWeHaveDone.com is the main page right now. But
Okay.
In Honor of Chad will get you there, and you can also just go to America Choice Mortgage and Benefits, and I'll post some stuff down in the comments so anybody
Okay.
can kind of find it and
Awesome.
get tickets.
Well, we
Wonderful.
have given our listeners so much amazing information, so I just want to quickly go back around and say, Hildy, what's your takeaway? What do you want our listeners to remember from the information you shared?
I love the comment that Roberta provided to the group and to us. Wise couples should get help and professional help from all of us. We can only know a limited amount in our lives. So to broaden our knowledge and understanding by getting professional input from wise women is my
It's okay to
takeaway.
ask for help.
Yes.
Women don't like to do that. We can be stubborn.
Well, men don't either.
Men
Hardly ask
don't
for
either,
directions, right?
True.
That's
I'll
true.
figure it out.
They don't even want to use the Google sometimes.
So true.
Google Maps.
I commend them for that because I call it de-evolution. If I that phone, I don't know where I'm going to be.
De-evolution. That's kind of true, though. Find out more about Hildy Fentin at fentinlaw.com. Laurie, what is your takeaway? What should people remember?
My takeaway is, while the marriage is good, please do not delegate the financial responsibilities to just one spouse. Please be aware. Please read your tax return before you sign it. If you don't understand it, please ask your CPA, or if your spouse is using TurboTax. I know it sounds boring, but those 2-3 hours are worth it, because every week I get phone calls from women who say, I'm in the dark and now we're getting divorced and I don't even know what we have to even divide.
Yeah.
So while the marriage is good, financial advisors, I'm not a trained mediator or a therapist, but I've known to sit with couples and try to help them while the marriage is good. Be literate financially with each other.
Play an active role. It may not be
Absolutely.
super exciting, but it will ultimately benefit you.
Do it now, and that if, God forbid, you do end up getting divorced, you'll both be so much healthier through the process.
That's Laurie Itkin. She is the Options Lady. You can find her at theoptionslady.com. Last but not least, Laleh Hanks. What's your takeaway?
Well, I mean, overall, I just think therapy once a month. I mean, I just think people need to communicate while it's a healthy relationship. That's always the advice that I give people. Don't think of therapy as a bad thing. I studied psychology, but I didn't finish. I went into mortgage lending, so you get a little bit of that with us.
Yeah.
Definitely walk you through those emotions.
There you go. I think with all of you, it's really someone to hold your hand and have an expert on your side. So thank you so much for being here today. You can find Laleh at americachoicebenefits.com. This is Real Talk San Diego. We are coming to you live from Smarter San Diego Studios, bringing you the business of life in America's finest city. I'm Claire McKee. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.